2 Timothy 3:1 tells us that in the last days, perilous times shall come. Now, I don't know if we're in the last days or not, but I think we are in an extraordinary time. As Christians, we are living in an extraordinary time in our lives, and I think an extraordinary time demands extraordinary Christians. We need to have an urgency about sharing the gospel with people that are in need. Several years ago, I've been burdened for the number of unreached people there are in the world. Statistically, there are about over 7,000 people groups that are unreached with the gospel. That translates to 3.3 or so billion people, or almost 42% or 43% of the world's population. That's a lot of people that have never heard the gospel. So that's been my burden over the past several years, was to actually try to have ministry in places where there are unreached people groups and so on. But this day that we're living in today, with the political climate in the world, with the virus situation, how can we not be urgent about getting the gospel to people? We have to have a biblical worldview rather than a political worldview about what is going on in our lifetime. And so we need to have this urgency about getting the gospel out. 2 Peter 3:9 tells us the Lord is not slack or slow concerning his promise, but is long-suffering to us. We're not willing that any should perish. It's God's heart that no one should perish. And I believe that should be our heart, and particularly this time that we're living in today. And so I think God is looking for Christians to be burdened, to have an urgency about getting the gospel out, not being taken aside by political things or distracted by health issues, but have an urgency for the gospel, because we could be in the last days. And God's heart is that no one should perish. So that's been my burden. And as the Lord directs, we have been trying in our ministry to get into places around the world that have this mindset. I was looking at missionaries of old, missionaries in the past, and how they were so urgent about the gospel. They were relying on the promises of God. They were surrendered to God, and they were committed to serving the Lord with their lives, no matter what it took. And I think that's what it's going to take today, a new generation of Christians that have that urgency for evangelism, that are willing to give their lives for the Lord. Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2, that we should present ourselves a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is our reasonable service. And be not conformed to the world. I think as Christians, we're too conformed to the world. We're not surrendered to God. We're not giving our lives as a sacrifice to God. These times, I believe, demand that we should be urgent and we should be willing to do whatever is necessary to get the gospel out.